Hey everyone, in today's episode we're going to show you how to exploit the GraphQL APIs using command injection, SQL injection, introspection query, how to use that, and as well as indirect object reference. So I have covered a lot about what is the GraphQL and some basics in the previous video. If you haven't seen that, I have linked that in the description. But in this video, I'm going to give you a brief introduction and then we'll straight to go to our demo where I'll show you in the real world application how do you exploit those. So the GraphQL is a query language. It's similar to REST or SOAP API, more like REST than the SOAP. It has a schema which is defined, and it can be used to interact with the data, right? So for example, if you have to query users, and user has a subset of like username, first name, last name, password, etc. So it has a schema defined, so you can query different part and different part of the database, and then you can get the response. And it mostly uses the JWT for authorization and access control. However, GraphQL by default does not provide that, and sometimes developer miss that, and you can use that to exploit that. So in this demo, I'll show you exactly how you can actually use that. So not an issue. The introspection, which I talked about, you can also exploit the introspection. So here it's allow you to read the schema, then it can also show us the query types, name, fields, etc. So in today's demonstration, when I'll show you how you can write the introspection query, and you can check when you want to do a GraphQL penetration test, and you can check if these are vulnerable. And here is their basic syntax. So like this looks like a underscore, but these are actually two underscores, and then schema, types, name. You can also have like field and etc. There's another syntax which is mutation. So of course you can query the data to like fetch the data from the database, but then you sometimes you also want to update the data. So like post request, like or put or update or patch. So here the syntax is mutation, my mutation, and then you define the field. So modified data fields will be returned in the response. So when you send this query with the mutation, it sends you the updated database data in the response. You don't have to fire another query to make sure the data has actually been added to the database or not. So that's actually a benefit, because it's just one request, right? It reduces the user wait time a lot. Uh, the example would be like mutation, my mutation, create user, input name is equal to John, and post that name, right? So it says post this name and add it to the database. That's as simple as that. Now there are several attacks you can do. You can do like SQL injection, no SQL injection. You can also do CSRF, command injection, introspection, which is information disclosure type of vulnerability. Then you can also indirect object reference, authorization checks, and rate limiting. Now I think in the previous video I showed you a couple of this, like not a live demo, so that's what we're gonna do in this video. Let's head over to our VM, and I'll show you how this actually works. So this is our simple application which is hosted on our local host, and if you send a request, it gives you the post added by various users. So here it shows you the username, body, title, etc., right? And this is the BurpSuite we're gonna use. And another extension I'm using is the GraphQL Radar, and which is the burp extension for testing endpoints implementing GraphQL. So I'm going to use this to change my payloads. So here this is the query which is sent, and this is the response we're gonna get, right? So let me choose the GraphQL, and so first we're gonna try the introspection query. And now usually this should be disabled in production. Maybe at times developer leave it open for in the dev environment or non-production, so they can play around and see what the schema is, rather than going back to the code and figure it out. But it's not a good practice to have it enabled in the production, because that gives attacker a lot of information. So how simply you can do that? So you have curly braces. As I said, like this looks like a 1 underscore, but this is actually 2 underscore. Then you have types, I think, yeah, name, and then you close 1, 2, and 3, and you send the data. And here you can see the list of like name which is available, query node ID post object connection page info boolean string. Okay, so there are quite a few. Let's see which one of those we can use, right? So we can start with if you want to go deep. Okay, so let's try different. Like none of this seems to be very useful. So I'm gonna do query type. You have to make sure the syntax is right for the GraphQL. Now here we'll do name. So I've closed to 1. Okay, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Okay, so here it says name, then all post and all users. Okay, so we have these three available, right? So but from here you can of course play around and you can explore different schema. I think in the previous video I actually demonstrated like how you can visualize this entire schema and how you can see that. So uh, I don't want to spend too much time here on figuring out, but I want to actually show you how to exploit this SQL injection or indirect object reference. Now one thing, as I said, noticed, make sure this is disabled in the production environment. If you see this, this is a very critical vulnerability. Okay, so for this one, this is one of the other application where like if you send the user, I think this is the user ID, and if you send that, it sends you the API key, name, surname, and date of birth. Right now we want to see if it's possible to change this. So if I directly change this, as I said, the authorization is not imposed by the GraphQL. So whenever you send something to the GraphQL, if I have access to the API, if I send something, it's gonna go back and fetch me the details. So here if I change this one, now I can see the username John Doe, and I see its API key as well. So if I replace it here, I can also play around and use that API key to perform some operations, right? If I have another APIs and I need the API key to send, now I can do the spoofing attack. Of course, I can also do a whole lot of different attacks because now I have got the API key and I know the which are the users. I can also send this to intruder, and I can like play around, inject here, and like I can say number 3. So now I got another user, so I can send it to the intruder and explore different users as well, which are stored in the database. So that's another way of doing it. Now the other vulnerability, so about the SQL injection, right? That's the critical one, and we want to see how we can do that. So here, as you can see, it says title, body, author, username. So this is the same response that we were getting in our first, and then we had the introspection open, right? So oops. So schema, then types, name, 2, 3. Okay, I think this is right. Okay, so as you can see here, we have a bunch of the same details that we were getting earlier, right? Now let me do the another one which we did earlier. So I'm just gonna copy and paste. I think I want to get, so here there are all users. There is also is SQL up, then get user. I think get user is something very interesting because we want to, all the users we got so far, we didn't know which user is admin user. So now my attempt is to find out who the admin user is. So let's copy this get user and replace it here. Of course, close this. Okay, so just like SQL injection, right? So you try different thing. Of course, you will hit some syntax errors, and that's from that you can figure it out what should be my next query. So here it says field get user of type user object must have a subselection. Okay, and then it says field get user argument username of type string is not equal required but not provided. All right, so from that it looks like we need to provide some username. So what I'm gonna do is so if you want to use the parameter, you must have figured out by now, you have to use this square bracket, not the square, sorry, rectangular or circular brackets, and then I'm gonna enter like a single quote. Oops. Okay, and close this bracket, make sure, and then it says you have to fetch using ID, so that's good, and we need to close one more bracket. Let's see. Okay, so now we got SQLi 3 operation error, and it says unrecognized token, limit offset, select users, okay, username, user password. Now as you can see, we figured out all the columns or the fields that this database is using. So now I can even have like more targeted query. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually have it written here just to save some time. So here you can see get user username, that I'm using the union select like you would do for any SQL injection, and from users where isAdmin is equal to true, right, and ID and username. So let's send this. Oh, so that way we figured out this is the username of the admin and this is the ID of the admin. Right, now let's see if we can figure out the password of this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say password. There are I think 4 columns. So 1 2 3, I don't know which one is being printed, so I'm just gonna replace all of them with the password. Now I've also shown like how to use the union select in my I think SQL injection playlist, SQL injection vulnerability. I've seen the demo of how you can use the union select to exploit and how you can build the query and everything. So if you're not sure, check that out as well, which I've linked in the description. Okay, so now we know the username. So I'm gonna say username is admin, and I think this is fine. Okay, so now we also got the password and the ID. So that's pretty much like how you can do the SQL injection. Now another thing, if you remember, we found was let me try this. So here there was another query or data field available which is says SQL up. So let's try this. Easier way to try is like derive from the error. So start with the basic thing, whatever information you have, send it. Let's see what error it gives. Field is SQL argument IP of type string is required. Okay, so it requires the IP address as its like one of the argument, right? So let's provide that. Okay, it says not enough values to unpack. Expected 2 but got 1. Okay, so maybe it's required 2 different values. So maybe I'll say 3306. That's the port number. Okay, now we got the response, but we don't know what is 256. So let's try to do command injection here. So what I'm gonna do is slip maybe 5 4. Okay, let's see if we can, okay, so now as you can see we can inject the command, and now the server is waiting for 5, and then we got the response. We don't know what is 0, but then we are still able to inject the command. So these are the various ways you can actually do the injection, different kind of vulnerabilities or exploitation in the GraphQL. I hope this is helpful to you because GraphQL is being used by many applications nowadays, and just like REST, probably in a few years it will become a very usual or very normal query language across all the applications. So make sure you do practice this. I don't know if there is any application in your world which you can try it out, but if you find one, please post in the comment below so everyone can try it out. Other thing, if you know any other injection attacks or any other attacks that you have tried on the GraphQL, please share those details as well, so we all can learn from it. I think that's all I have for this video. Please hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already. Subscribe to my channel. I'll come back next week with another interesting episode. Thank you so much and have a good one. Bye.